Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Tripped on My Face. My army shot records aren't good enough? Cool, here's my whole VA file. Let's jump right in. Alright, fellow appreciators of absurdity and pettiness, here's a satisfying medium-length read to get you that much closer to the weekend as you grind away at the hamster wheel that is the American work week. So I recently transitioned from active duty army to the National Guard, which, as my fellow former service members know, comes with a metric buttload of paperwork and medical records. This will be relevant later. So I got out last December, got accepted to grad school in February, and just started classes a few weeks ago. As you all know, there is some sort of pandemic virusy thing going on, and many institutions require a vaccine to attend in-person classes, which the program I am enrolled in falls under. Like a good little boy, I got my vaccine as soon as I could last March, posted the obligatory nobody gives a crap picture of my vaccine card, and then moved on with my life. Fast forward to June, and I am hopping through the endless admin hoops of going back to school, and of course, submitting immunization records is on the to-do list. Since I got my shot through the National Guard, they actually already had the box checked for the COVID vaccine. Cool. Maybe that's because I'm attending a public university in the state I'm in the Guard for, so maybe they share a medical database? I don't know, doesn't matter. And for those of you who cry HIPAA, newsflash, when you join the military, you give a few things up, get stuff in return, blah blah, not what the story is about. Although I don't think that a COVID shot can do anything to me that anthrax, typhoid, and smallpox shots, 3 pinched nerves, and 5 years of running on pure hate and caffeine hasn't done to me already. But hey, I'm still kicking. On to the malicious compliance part. Now, to submit the rest of my immunization shot records, I have to upload a PDF into the school's medical portal. So I go through the shot record in my medical out-processing packet, snip the page so it's just the immunizations, thinking no need to exclude extraneous military stuff that may confuse them, and hit submit. It's literally just one page. A few days later, lo and behold, I get a notice saying my medical records are incomplete or incorrect, and action is required on my behalf. I have to upload more info. Okay, will do. I just want to get this done. So I submit the whole shot record, historical record, testing portion, about 30 pages. Oh, what do you know? Deja vu. A few days later, I get an email saying, "Dear Mr. Student, this is to inform you that additional action is required." Yeesh. So I log into the medical portal, because of course this can't be done through email. HIPAA, I know, I just like to complain because we're all human, sue me. And see that whoever reviewed the longer PDF I uploaded wasn't satisfied, saying my submission of proof of immunization was incomplete. Okay, fine, you know what? We'll play that game. I go dig through a closet and find the folder that has my out-processing stuff from active duty. The thing is, when you get out, they give you a physical hard copy of your medical records on paper, in addition to all the digital stuff, as well as what they send to the VA. My medical records were long enough to require 2 CDs, so copy them to my laptop, then upload them to the school's medical portal, all 745 pages of CD1 and 300 pages of CD2. Before I hit upload, I respond to the previous message explaining that this is the entirety of my service medical records, and if this isn't sufficient documentation, please let me know. This was maybe late July, early August. Fast forward to mid-September, and today I received an email confirming the acknowledgement of my proof of vaccination status. Hooray! Solely out of curiosity, I decide to check the documents part. Lo and behold, it's the original one-pager I made. Now, to be fair, I have no idea if someone read through that whole thing or said F this guy and went back to the first one, but either way, due to the 6+ week wait, I'd like to think that some poor sap actually tried to dig through that. But hey, if you really want to waste my time, I'll return the favor. It was mentioned down in the comments that there was probably some disclosure that was missed when OP sent in just the first page. So where they got the shot, who they got the shot from, what batch number it was, and all that stupid little stuff. I'd like to think that some poor sap in the records department was sitting there trying to go through all the stuff that OP uploaded, and they were spending way too much time on it, and a supervisor came up and said, "What are you doing that's taking all your time?" And then all of a sudden, that first paper was just fine. Did you know we started back up the Karma Comment Chameleon podcast? It's now available on all major podcasting platforms. Just search out Karma Comment Chameleon. Our next story today comes to us from G Main D. Company called me average, so I became average. Let's jump right in. So this isn't malicious compliance in the exact sense of the words, but pretty much the same effect. I, 26 male, started my first job after college 3.5 years ago. I was hired with a group of 25 people. I used to run a lot of clubs in college and had this "I need to finish my job as best as I possibly can" attitude when I first joined. I was good at what I did and put in considerably more work than the other people who joined with me. Another huge motivation behind this was that since the initial pay wasn't good enough, I wanted to impress with my work and get a really good raise at the end of the year. So throughout the year, I kept working late hours, stayed at the office for 10 plus hours on a regular. The way our work dynamic was, I was the only one under my manager, and we were both supposed to share the work on the projects. And slowly and steadily, my manager started noticing I'm taking up extra stuff, and he started offloading his work onto me too. Now, I was essentially doing my own job and half of his job as well, and had reduced the time it took to do those things by at least 40%. I was stressed and overworked, but was getting exceptional weekly ratings, so I felt it was worth it. How naive I was. Appraisal time came, and I went into the one-on-one with my manager. This guy tells me that while I have one of the best performance ratings in the company, they're not allowed to give freshers a huge raise, and I received the same raise that the others who joined with me did by doing the bare minimum. I was pissed. I told my manager that since the company has declared me average, that he should expect average performance from now on. He laughed there thinking I was kidding. I wasn't. Next day onwards, every task that would be done in 2 hours now needs 8. Won't stay in the office for more than the agreed upon 8.5 hours. Won't finish up lunch quickly to get some more work done. Won't do any of your job for you. "Oh, the client is asking for this document that I prepared in an hour? Sorry, an average person wouldn't do it in less than 4. So I'm going to keep it with me while I take the next 3 hours to figure out how to update the table of contents." It takes 3 clicks, by the way. "Oh, there's something you need to ask after work hours? Sorry, it'll have to wait till tomorrow." Complaints started coming in quick about the delays in deliverables. Managers started spending a lot of time frustrated because he wasn't very good to begin with, and now I wasn't taking up his workload. I spent the entire year working 2 hours a day while I spent the rest of the time listening to music, browsing Reddit, and watching him struggle. Left at the end of the year for a job that paid 3 times the salary. Some details of our projects get published online, and last I checked, this guy was running 7 to 8 months behind on some of the projects, and from what I heard from some of my friends in the company, he didn't get a raise last year. There is an old saying that says, "You pretend to pay us, we pretend to work." This comes into play here. Companies expect more and more out of workers, and most of them aren't willing to push back. If you're not getting paid, don't do the work. There's no other answer for that. Time is your most valuable asset, and you can't let the company take advantage of you for that. Our next story today comes to us from Jed292. How I got a dangerous workshop repaired and pissed off a manager. Let's jump right in. Sorry, it's a long one. I like to ramble, and it's technically a 2-for-1. So I know what people are going to say. If it was dangerous, why not just report it to health and safety? My answer is that I am thick as mints. Plus, I've seen how they butchered the workshop of another department, putting insane safety measures in place that do little to actually protect people and mostly just get in the way. The safety person is only technically qualified, meaning they're an office worker that went on a course about it once. Go figure. So the situation was, I was working in a machining workshop, mill, lathe, service grinder, etc. And it's old and worn out. Everything needs maintenance, but either management doesn't give us the time, it needs new parts that management won't buy, or it needs a proper service from a professional that management won't get in. Then someone in health and safety asks about safety checks, which the manager in charge sheepishly mentions there are none. Officially at least, we have the sense to do them anyway. And so weekly safety checks are put in place, more paperwork, boo, but I don't mind. Knowing this manager, he expects them done like all other safety checks in the factory. Unless it's going to kill someone, sign to say it's okay anyway, and let him know so that it can be fixed later. That way the machines don't get stopped constantly. But I realize the potential. Want me to do the checks? Sure, I'll do the checks perfectly. Spindle brake on the lathe is worn out, fail, locked off. Nobody can use it until it's fixed. No emergency stop on the big drill, fail, locked off, nobody can use it. Plastic housing for the wiring on the mill is broken, fail, locked off, nobody can use it, etc, etc. Safe to say he wasn't happy, but what can he do? It's all recorded on paper, and machines in the factory are stopping because they need parts. Then came the big one. For a while, we've noticed machines getting damaged overnight, but we weren't sure how. All the machines are on key locks, and we have the only keys. I come back after break one day and find a machine operator turning on a bench grinder to sharpen a knife. Cue some colorful words about what he thinks he's doing, why it's wrong, what I'll do to him if he does it again, and I ask how he turned it on. Turns out, someone from night shift told him the lock is old and worn out, and basically any similar key will work just fine, no matter what the bidding. So I go round to check, and sure enough, my locker key, the kind everyone in the factory has, turns on every machine. Some even worked with a screwdriver or just using the back end of another key because there was no lock left inside. Fail, 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 everything fails. Whole workshop stopped. If this was a cartoon, the manager's ears would be leaking steam by now. He insists that this doesn't count as a fail because reasons. Then that those locks with the keys that control power aren't keyed interlocks, and so I don't need to check them before finally insisting it's okay and I should pass it because he said so. Sure, I said, just put it in writing that it's you saying it's okay, not me. Sure, backed down quickly then. A day or so later, new locks turned up and were fitted, and the problem of overnight broken equipment went away. In the end, the manager got an earful from his bosses about production delays and another from health and safety when they found out these issues had been reported for a long time without anything being done about them. In all though, he got away pretty clean besides the bruised ego. And that's how the workshop went from old, crappy and dangerous to just old and slightly less crappy. Yeah, most of the time management just doesn't care about your safety until something happens, or if they're having an inspection or something like that, they have to be forced to care. One thing we absolutely do get out of this story is the fact that if you're told to do something and you don't think it's right, ask them to put it in writing, because they might see exactly what it is they're asking you to do, although we are talking management here, so they probably won't, and you might get it in writing and then your butt's covered. Win-win. Our next story today comes to us from Baron Samdi 13. Don't waste your time? Okay, I won't. Let's jump right in. I work for a large store that sells many different kinds of construction materials. The other day, I had a very impatient woman that insisted that she could buy a few items out of a box that is always sold by the box and never individually. She originally asked a fairly new coworker of mine if she could buy them individually, to which he responded with, "I'm not sure, let me ask my coworker." This is fairly standard for new employees, of course, except the moment he turned his back to her, she took the few she had in her hands and began to leave. I told him that we do not in fact sell them individually, so he called her back to him to inform her of this. We led her back over to the products to see if we could help her find something that she could buy individually when the woman pointed at the boxes she had taken the items out of and said, "Well, these ones are open, so people must buy them individually all the time." Of course, there were none actually missing from the boxes except the ones she took out. It was just damaged packaging on the others. I was trying to explain that they wouldn't let her pay for the items as they were out of the package, but I was cut off by, "Well, the boxes are open so people buy them individually. So I'm buying them individually, don't waste my time." I warned her once again that she wouldn't be allowed to purchase the items, but she ignored me and kept walking. So I pulled out my work phone and called my cashier manager. I quickly told her that I had a woman coming up to the front of the store with a few items that were taken out of their packaging and could not be sold to her. From what I understand, the moment she got to the cash registers, they were telling her she wasn't going to be able to pay for the items she wanted, and the woman started screaming at the cashiers, but stormed out pretty quickly when she realized she wasn't going to get her way. In the end, I gave her what she wanted. I bet she's never been told no as quickly as she was that day. I was just glad I could help her speed up the process. I think this would have been a much better story if they had called up to the cashier and said, hey, this person's coming up with these items that are supposed to be sold in a full package, so charge them the price of a full package for each individual one they have. I would have loved to have seen the look on their face when the cashier told them that. Our last story today comes to us from Jed292. I need to ask my manager first? Sure, let's jump right in. So after posting another story of mine, a deep memory of another perfect bit of malicious compliance sprung to mind. I was a young guy, new to the industry. I used to work maintenance in a factory, but after a few years, switched to replace the retiring machine workshop guy, technically a different department but still closely related. To keep the place running, occasionally I'd still do odd maintenance jobs, fix a bent thing here, replace some bolts there, just little things, and only when they were more important than whatever else I was doing. For some reason, the maintenance manager took offense to this. Apparently, if I'm going to do a job for the shop floor, I can't just go help someone when they ask. I need to go ask a manager, meaning come ask my permission and I'll decide if you're too busy. Honestly, the guy was a control freak. Nothing to do with issue reporting since I still did that anyway. Doing it his way was more important than doing it right, so this wasn't out of character. I basically ignored this. He was never around to ask, and often in the time it took to find him, I'd be done with the job. So cue several more talkings to when he catches me doing jobs, and eventually he threatens to take it further if I keep disobeying this order. Then the obvious solution clicks. A few days later, he comes storming up to me while I'm fixing something, thoroughly pissed. He begins ranting at me about how he's told me time and time again that I need to ask, that clearly I can't listen, and if I can't listen, I shouldn't be doing this job. I tell him, actually, I did ask. No, you didn't. I didn't ask you, I asked my manager. He says it's fine and not to bother him asking about every little job, so just get on with it. Now, is there anything else or can I get back to work? The machine is stood after all. He stood there for a few seconds, starting the first syllable of a word and doing half a hand gesture before cutting himself off, mouth opening and closing like a goldfish, eventually just storming off pretending that it's all okay. Being new and young, I'd get pushed around a lot, get stuck doing the bad job that wasn't mine to do, that sort of thing. This was the turning point where I realized a polite F off with a reason to back it up does wonders. I don't get the bad jobs anymore. This is something that will work in any job. If a manager that's not your manager comes to you and is making your life heck, tell your manager. Make it a problem between those two managers, because honestly, you're not paid enough to deal with somebody that isn't in your department. Check out all 5 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.